Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you haven't guessed by the thumbnail and the title, this is episode 3 of Sammysnake's Driving School. If you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, make sure to go to my channel and check them out. I've created a playlist so you'll be able to see all of the lessons in one place. We've covered a lot of different things and they've been really helpful to a lot of the subscribers. So make sure you check those videos out if you haven't already. But in episode 3, the 3 topics that we're going to be covering today to give you tips and pointers are brake balance. What does it do? How does it work? And where can you use it to your advantage? We're going to give you tips on how to make sure your tires last as long as possible. Some things that can work to make the tires last longer, and how some other things can make the tires wear even faster that you want to avoid, and give you examples of how that works. And that can also tie into brake balance. And finally, we're going to give you tips and pointers on how to save fuel in the most efficient and fastest way possible. So if you find yourself in a race where it's going to be to your advantage to save some fuel, say if it takes a long time to put fuel in the car in the pits and you have to do a pit stop, you can save some time by having more fuel in the car. Or if you just need to make the fuel last the full length of the race without stopping in the pits. So we're going to give you some tips and pointers. So without further ado, let's jump into brake balance and give you an explanation of what that is, how it works, and how we can apply changing the brake balance to certain cars to get an advantage out of that. Okay, so before we start, I'm going to quickly go over what braking bias does. It might seem obvious to some people, but there could be people watching who really don't know. So when we brake, as you can see, braking force 100%. When it's in the middle, the force of braking is going equally to the front and the rear tyres. It's trying to stop all 4 of the tyres equally. Now, if we put it to the front, max to the front, there's going to start asking a lot more of the front tyres by sending more force. It's going to split that more to the front, and if we set it to the rear, it's going to ask less of the front tyres when stopping the car and more of the rear tyres. Now, how you can use this to your advantage, we're going to talk about handling and stability of a vehicle first. So just like when we were talking about trail braking, what we've always got to remember is the vehicle that we're in, which is the 911 GR3 car. Each one of those tyres, and we're on racing hard tyres here, has a limit of grip. And that limit of grip can be exceeded by asking too much, either going too fast around a corner or just braking too late and going straight on, not being able to stop the vehicle in time. And what we've got to remember is there's more than one force being applied to the brakes when we are racing. There's acceleration, that it's trying to move the car forward. The rubber is trying to grip on the tarmac and move it forward. When the car is stopping and we're applying the brakes, it's trying to grip on the rubber is trying to grip on the tarmac and stop the car. And when we are going around corners, moving, there's lateral movement where it's trying to stop the car from sliding left or right. So what we have to remember is when we are coming into a corner with a bend and we're trying to slow the car down, we have to get the balance just right of brakes and turning, because if we exceed too much, if we're braking too much and turning too much, we go over the limit of the grip and the car starts to slide, and we always want to avoid the car sliding. Now, this is where we can manipulate the braking bias to help us. So the 911 GR3 is a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car. So this car has got a lot of grip on the rear. The weight of the vehicle, the engine is towards the rear, so it's got really good traction. If you've ever driven this car, you'll have noticed it's an easy car to drive in wet conditions and slippy conditions because it can accelerate really well. However, the downfall it has is the fact that when we're coming into a a sweeping corner on an undulation where it's easy for the car to oversteer. There's certain corners in the game, and we're going to show that with turn 1 at Road Atlanta, where if you don't get the balance just right, it's very easy for a car to oversteer under brakes and start sliding round. I just wanted to mention, as I didn't mention in the demonstration, the reason why this car wants to oversteer while turning around corners is because there's more weight towards the rear, so therefore the rear tyres have to do more work than the front, and that is why the limit of grip is exceeded. So I'm going to give you an example of how this car handles when we have brake bias in the middle and we attempt to come into turn 1, and I'll show you how temperamental this car can be and why it can be tricky to drive and get that corner right. So let's jump in and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so coming down to turn 1, we're going to brake just after where this tarmac opens up. Oh, and the back end's gone already there. We managed to catch the slide and save it. We can see because of the rear engine, it really wanted to slide around there, and that cost us time. Let's watch that in the replay so you can see that happen better. So here we go, we're coming into turn 1 here. We're braking, and you can see fairly smooth inputs, very little brakes, keeping it in 5th gear, and then it started to slide there. That's where I felt the car start to slide, and that's why I started braking a little bit more. And as you can see, it slides. We saved it, but that is not ideal. That's temperamental. We don't want the car to do that. So let's see how much worse that is with brake balance all the way to the rear, just to show you how it exaggerates that even more. Okay, coming down to turn 1, same braking marker. Let's see how the car handles now. Oh, it does the same again. So it's no better, it's probably a little bit worse. We came out slower of that corner because, and it's trying to do it even more so around these corners now. So let's now change the brake balance to the front and see whether the car is a little bit more stable, more balanced going around that corner. So let's exaggerate like we have been doing. Brake balance to the front now. And let's take this corner, can maybe take this corner even more aggressively now. Oh, look at that straight away. Carried much more speed around that corner, loads better, loads more confidence, and again, more confidence there going around that corner. Now, what I want to say is you don't always have to have it +5 or plus or -5. There's a balance to be made, and you have to find what that is for each individual car. +5 might make this car understeer a little bit more, but the point I'm making is because this is a mid-engined rear-wheel drive car, it's got a tendency on those types of corners to want to throw the back end around. Because of the weight transfer in this vehicle, it's susceptible to oversteer under brakes, and what we can do to fight against that is change the brake balance so it balances the car coming into those braking zones with more stability. Okay, and now we're at Monza and we find ourselves in the Genesis, and this Genesis is actually a front-engined rear-wheel drive car, which is great for stability, you know, corners around at the T1 at Atlanta where we've just been. But the problem with this car is it has a tendency to understeer because there's a lot of weight on the front tyres, and the front tyres are responsible for turning the vehicle. When it comes to rotating a vehicle into a corner so you can get it pointing in the right direction, to be able to get on the accelerator quicker, it has a tendency to understeer. So I'm going to again give you examples of neutral brake balance. Well, this time we'll go with the front brake balance and show you how the car drives, and then we'll show you how putting it to the rear helps. Okay, so we're coming down to turn 1. Neutral brake balance in the Genesis, racing hard tyres. I believe the braking marker is usually 150 yards, so that's where we're going to aim to brake, and we're going to try and rotate it into the chicane, getting the right hand tyres over the sausage curb. Oh, and it's understeered there. I was trying my best to trail brake it in, but it just wouldn't stop. So as you can see, understeering out, we missed our point, and if you can get it over that sausage curb to the right, you can then turn it much better into the left and be much faster. So let's try again, and we'll go with a bit of front brake balance and just show you how that's even worse. Same braking marker. I'm going to fast forward this little bit now through the power of editing. Right, same again, same braking marker. Let's try and get it turned in and see what it feels like. Oh, even worse, even worse. It's asking far too much of the front tyres, and they're just losing grip and sliding forwards. Right, okay, we've gone +5 with the brakes now. Same braking marker, 150. Let's see if we can get this car turned in and get some more grip on the front tyres and go through this chicane faster. Oh, look at that, lovely. It almost rotated in too much, and we might have got a shortcut penalty. But as you can see, just a quick example, 3 options of what happens when you change neutral to the front, to the rear, and you can see how much better it rotates in. And that's how you can apply brake balance forwards, backwards, and it depends on the car. But rule of thumb is if it's a mid-engined or rear-engine car, it's probably going to want a bit of front brake balance, if anything. And if it's a front-engined car where the weight's on the front, it's probably going to want some rear brake balance. It can be dependent on each and every car, how it handles, you know, +1, 2, 3 or 4, or -1, 2, 3 or 4. But that's how you apply brake balance and how it helps you there. Stability for the MR cars with some front brake balance, and rotation for the front-engined cars. Okay, let's move on to tyre wear and tyre management to be able to prolong the length that your tyres can last. So what I've done here for an example is set up a lobby around Suzuka GR3 cars, and I've set the tyre wear to ×15. So it's not a lot of footage. I'll probably have to fast forward the laps, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to enter this this track, run a few laps, just driving flat out, just trying to find some pace, see how long these racing hard tyres last, and then talk you through some of the things that you can do to make the tyres last longer, and we'll see how much of a difference that makes in where we get to in terms of distance compared to the first example of just driving normally, which will be until one of the tyres has fully gone red. But let's change. Let's. I'm going to put medium tyres on so it doesn't quite take as long. We don't want to be here forever, do we? Right. Okay. Let's go. Let's jump in. Oh, and there we have it. Not even 3 laps. Not even 3 laps of the tyres lasted there. I will have fast forwarded that very quickly. So right now, let me jump in and to some fresh tyres and show you what we're going to do again, and some of the techniques you can use to prolong tyre life. Okay, so there are various different techniques we can use. Now, first and foremost, what I'm going to talk about, which this ties into our last lesson, is brake balance. So just in the way that we know that it can help a car with turning or stability, what we saw there was the front tyres were wearing more than the rear. So straight away we can put brake balance to the rear. We're going to maximize the difference here, and we actually know that a bit of rear brake balance is good in the Genesis, in which what we're driving today. So that's the very first thing that we're going to do. The second thing, or one of the other things that you could do, is coasting around the corners. So normally when you're driving, you're thinking about braking totally till the last minute, get it to the apex speed, and then you're trying to get on the gas as soon as possible as you come through the corner. Now, you can go almost as fast into a corner and around the section of corners by actually just lifting off the accelerator, lifting off, letting it coast, keeping it on the apex, delicate with the throttles, and whilst you're not applying any acceleration forces or braking forces whilst you're turning, coasting around the corner asks less. The tyres have got less to do, so they will last longer whilst they're not doing as much work. And then finally, we're just going to really work on minimizing our inputs. So if we come up to this corner, you'll see here, if I'm coming around this corner and I turn it too much, you hear the tyres squealing. Now, that's because the tyres are working too hard. But if we are really smooth with the inputs and try and make sure that the tyres aren't squealing, then they're going to last longer again. So smoother inputs, lifting and coasting, and then finally braking a little bit earlier. Just braking a little bit earlier and not quite going 100% with the brakes. The car will stop pretty well, but if we limit the braking put to like 95%, something like that, then again the tyres have got less to do. So when we combine all of those things, the tyres will last much longer. So rear brake balance, coasting around the corners, smooth, delicate inputs, and not braking 100% of the time, all of the time. So let's retry and do some fast forwarding and see how long we can make the same tyres last with implementing those changes. Oh, okay, well, it's got the tyres were dead there. Right, okay, wow. To be honest, that actually surprised me how much of a difference there was there. Now, I know I've just played that in fast forward, so you've not been able to really see how, but in detail, but you can, the principles apply. You just got to kind of take my word for it that that's what I was doing. Rear brake balance, coasting around the corners, more delicate with the inputs, and all of those, and not braking 100% all of the time. Now, as you can actually see, we went faster on the second lap, even with driving like that. And I made, if you watch, I actually made a mistake coming around the penultimate corner, which cost us a bit of time. So, and that's due to the tyres lasting longer and having more grip. So that's the advantage of when you can make the tyres last. It may not be as fast as if you were driving flat out all the time to your normal standard, But over the course of a period of time, when your tyres start lasting longer, you've got more grip, then you begin to start getting an advantage later in the race. So those are the things that you can do to make your tyres last, and you'll see a whole lap more. That's like an extra, what's the math? Somebody will do the maths. An extra 25% further. We didn't get 3 laps, so we've managed another one. So it's an extra third. It's more than an extra third. 35 to 40% further. So those are some of the things you can do to make your tyres last even longer, as you can see with this example. Okay, now finally, we have got fuel saving. Now I thought the best way to kind of test which is the best, most effective way to save fuel whilst retaining pace, because ultimately when you're saving fuel you are going to have to sacrifice a little bit of overall speed, then I thought it would be good to come to special stage through X. I put the fuel consumption on times 50, and we're going to come out of the pits and we're going to race up to the 2000 meter marker and see how fast we come up to that line and how many percent of fuel we've got as we hit that line, revving it out normally. Then fuel saving by putting it in a fuel mix 3, we'll just put it in the middle and see how many percent fuel we have there and what time we get to as we hit the 2000 meter marker. And then we're going to try short shifting. So I may have to use a little bit of editing to pause it exactly at the frame, but whilst I'm just going through it live, I'll try and pause it myself, or try and look at what the timer is. But either way, through editing, we'll get the results. So let's jump in, do a normal run, just accelerate to 2000 meters, see how fast we get there, see how many percent of fuel, and then run the other 2 tests. Okay, that's the 1,000 yard meter marker. So we're going to the 2,000. I'm going to try and keep an eye on everything and pause it just after. Not sure if I'll be able to see the timer. So we're coming up to 55. That looked like about 52% of fuel. I will have to check the timings. Right now, we'll jump in. Fuel map 3. We'll definitely save fuel here, so I'm just going to keep an eye on the amount of percent roughly, rev it out the same amount, and then we will try short shifting afterwards. And I'll give you a breakdown of my thoughts on fuel saving and what I do after this. So looking at the fuel, definitely got more fuel. We're going to have about, well, not a lot more, maybe about 5%, and it looked like just around 26 seconds. Again, editing will reveal that. Okay, now let's try that with some short shifting. See what time we cross the line, see how many percent of fuel there is, and see what that tells us. The first 2 gears, unfortunately, are out of our control here. There's no short shifting that we can do as we come out of the pits, but it's fine. So we're going for 3/4. Maybe just before. Let's see what the percent is. I can't see both, so you'll have to rely on my freezing the frame and voiceover. But wow, okay. So there we have the results on the screen. Test 1, normal gear changing, 24.950, 52% of fuel used. Test 2 with fuel map 3, 25.664, quite slow with about 9% fuel saved. And then test 3, 25.0, only half a tenth slower, but 7% of fuel saved. Now, to me, that is conclusive proof that it is much better to short shift as you retain almost the same amount of pace but save a lot of fuel. And I believe that if we would have been able to short shift in first and second gear coming out of the pits, it would have been pretty much exactly the same as fuel map 3. So, what I tend to find, and I think the results have just shown that, at least with this car, the short shifting saves you around about the same amount of fuel. That kind of short shifting saves you about the same as fuel map 3, but is far faster, much faster. So if I was to ever choose to either go for fuel maps or just changing gear earlier to save fuel, I would always choose short shifting. And that's what I want you to take away from this. Don't just rely on fuel maps for saving fuel. Yes, it's going to save you fuel, but it will cost you a lot more time and pace than what just changing gear a little bit earlier will do. And there's not really much more to go over. The only other things you can consider with this is that some cars perform better or worse depending on how you rev it. So there's the old Honda that we were doing in the master license. I think it's like master license 4 around Catalonia. That really performs very well when you over rev it. So in that circumstance, fuel map might perform similar or better than short shifting. But then you can equally come to some other cars like the GR3 Chevrolet or the Dodge Viper, which are actually faster when you short shift them. So they will be much better than fuel maps, because you want to be short shifting in the first place, and you can just exaggerate that short shift even more to save even more fuel. So those are just some nuances that you want to consider. But to be honest, that's pretty much it for episode 3. We've covered brake balance, we've covered tyre management, and we've covered how best to save fuel. Don't forget, if you haven't watched them, catch episode 1 and 2. Created a playlist for you to be able to go through all of those. The previous episodes have covered multiple things: driving lines, trail braking. I can't list them off the top of my head because I'm thinking about this right now, but have a look. It's all in the description of those videos, and hopefully you'll be able to learn from these series of videos. But that is episode 3 finished. If you're here till the end of the video, I guess I'm going to ask you again, if you're not subscribed, please do. I'm so close. I'm getting so close. We've been streaming now less than 3 months, around 3 months, and we're on the cusp of getting 800 subscribers. It's been going really well. I'm just over 800 as I'm recording this video. And I want to get 1,000 subscribers, because that'll allow me to try and apply to be a partner on YouTube, and that opens things up to actually start earning money from views and memberships, super chats, all that kind of jazz. So if you could help me to achieve that goal, it would be massively appreciated. The bigger this channel gets, the better the content I can provide you, and the more help I'll be able to give you, more entertainment. But for this episode, that's it. It's over and out from the Racing Snake, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.